Assalamualaikum and very good day everyone. Now we're going to move into the topic of cake making. So there are three main goals of mixing the cake batter. So we're talking about why we're going to mix our cake batter, adunan tu. First is to combine all the ingredients into a smooth uniform batter. So to make all the ingredients mixed together. And then the second one, to form and incorporate air cell into the batter. And then the third one, to develop the proper texture in the finished product. Okay, we go one by one, okay? First, combining ingredient into a homogeneous mixture. Okay, part of the purpose of mixing is to form an emulsion of water and fat. Emulsion, if you still remember, in your food studies topic, emulsion is the process when you mix two different things that which cannot mix together. For example, water and fat. So the process of mixing the dough or the batter helps to mix those ingredients which cannot be mixed or cannot be mushed together. So curdling occurs when the fat can no longer hold the water in the emulsion. Curdling is when the fat curdle or it become factors that can cause curdling is first using the wrong type of fat. So for example, if you're supposed to use margarine or butter, but then you use different kind of fat, for example, ghee, minyak sapi or some sort like that. And then the second factor is having the ingredient is too cool. For example, you add in cool milk or cool fat or cool margarine or cool eggs. So emulsion are best performed at the temperature of 21 degrees Celsius. Mixing the first stage of the procedure is too quickly. So the first stage of procedure which is creaming method. So you do the mixing process is too quick so that the curdling process will occur. And then add in liquid too quickly also will be the cause to make the batter curdle. And then adding too much liquid also make the batter become curdle because when too much liquid, the fat will floating on top of the liquid. Okay, second one. Why we need to do the mixing is to add in air cell. Air cell in cake batters are important for the texture and leavening. So with the help of we adding air cell ataupun udara ke dalam awak punya batter tu, you help the batter or you help the cake to rise up untuk naikkan dia tinggi. So the correct temperature is necessary for good air cell formation. So you need to choose a good or a right temperature fat, such as cool fat, which is 16 degrees Celsius, is too hot to do the mixing process, and warm fat, for example, in 24 degrees Celsius, is too soft. When the margarine or the butter is too hot, we cannot do the mixing process because it's too hard to mix together with the sugar. And then when we choose the fat which is melted or in 24 degrees Celsius, it is too hard for you to do the mixing process too because it's too soft. Okay, mixing speed should be moderate or medium. You cannot just simply choose the high speed to do your mixing or to do your creaming method because the mixing process will not go through the right condition. And granulated sugar is the best for creaming method, your cakes. So please choose the right sugar for your cakes ingredient, okay? Don't just simply use coarse sugar or you just use any kind of sugar. Please use granulated sugar or we can see it as caster sugar because it's in small particle size, so it's easy for the sugar to been dissolved into the creaming paste. Okay, in egg form cakes, the egg sugar mixture should be slightly warm. Okay, when you want to mix the mixture, which is, for example, we're doing the sponge cake method, sometimes they do need to slightly warm the eggs or the liquid mixture. So they just take one bowl and then put in your egg and sugar, and then at the bottom of your bowl you just put one hot pot of water, and then you just need the steam to heat up the eggs and the sugar. So this will help to make the cake mixing rise up more faster and quickly. In the egg form cake, whipping may be done at high speed at first, but then final stage of whipping should be at medium speed. Okay, for example, this is for the sponge cake or chiffon cake method. At first stage of mixing, when we mix together or we do the beating or mixing process, we need to choose the high speed mixer. We need to choose the high speed when you're using the mixer, and then we need to slow down or just turn into medium speed. So why we need to do the mixing? The third point is to develop texture. A factor that affects texture is gluten development. If you still remember, we're talking about gluten development when we do our dough product, when we do the bread and the donut and so on. So a very little gluten development is necessary in cakes, so cake flour is used. So please don't use high protein flour or bread flour when do your cake or when baking your cake. We just need cake flour or soft flour to do your cake because we don't need the gluten development. In creaming, sponge and angel food method, the flour is added at near to the end of the process so that the gluten is not overdeveloped. So means that when we're done with our creaming method, we add in our liquid, and then we add in our flour so that we least work with our flour. We do not overwork with our flour so the gluten is not overdeveloped. But in two-stage method, the flour is added at the first step. Since it's made with the shortening, the flour is coated with the fat, so limiting gluten development. So instead of you using the usual way to do your creaming method, this is the other way that you can choose. So it's the usual way, we just do the creaming method first, mix butter and sugar, beat until it's smooth and creamy, then you add in your flour and your eggs. But this time, you use two-stage method, is you mix the flour and your fat or your butter first, mix together. Once it's become mixed or it's already mixed, then you add in your liquid item. So this is the other way that you can choose to make your mixing your cake. Okay, now we move on into high-fat cake. High-fat cake, for example, if you can classify it as butter cake, chocolate cake, or any kind of cake which is high ratio in fat. Fat, we are talking about butter, margarine, or shortening. So those kind of fat we can classify as high fat cake. So creamy method. First step, we need to scale your ingredient. Please remember, do follow the actual reading on your ingredient on your recipe. Please scale your ingredient nicely and correctly. And then please place butter or shortening in the bowl or your mixing bowl. Beat slowly until it's smooth and creamy. Okay, beat the butter or the margarine first. Beat until it's smooth. So then next step, you add in sugar. And then cream at moderate speed until it's fluffy. So the process we call it as creaming method. The process when we beat together the butter and the sugar. And then after the mixture become creamy and then the color becomes slightly pale in color. The butter, as you can see, it become at first it's more like yellowish color, but then it become pale white in color, and then we can add in eggs one by one. If you're using 5 eggs, you need to add in 1 eggs at one time. Add in eggs and then beat until all the eggs are well incorporated, and then you add in another egg, and then continue until you finish all your eggs. And then don't forget to scrape sides of your bowl so that the mixture will be mixed together and won't stick on your bowl surface. And then add the sifted dry ingredient alternately with the liquid. So if you use your plain flour or soft flour, and with addition of baking powder or baking soda, we need to sift your dry ingredient. So sift with a sifter and then put aside, and then when the creamy method is done, you just add in maybe 1/3 of your dry ingredient, 1/3 of your flour, add in into the bowl and then beat together. Alternately, you add in the liquid. If you're using milk or juice, any kind of juice, so you just alternately add in flour, stir, add in liquid, stir, then add in another part of flour, stir, and then add another liquid and stir. So repeat until all the ingredients are used. So the reason why we're adding dry and liquid ingredient alternately is the batter may not absorb all the liquid unless flour is present. So this procedure is good for you to make the batter is more incorporate and well mixed together. So when we using the 2-stage method to do the creamy method, so 2 rules for using 2-stage method is mix at low speed and observe the correct mixing time, and stop the mixer frequently, scrape down the sides of the bowl. So if you still remember, 2-stage method is when we add in flour to the fat, to the butter or to the margarine first at first stage. We don't do the creamy method as what we taught just now when we do the butter and sugar. So this is the other way that you can choose. So firstly, you have to scale your ingredient and then sift the flour, baking powder, baking soda, or anything which is dry ingredient. Sift and then put aside. And then you add in any kind of shortening or any kind of fat that you use. So for example, we're talking about shortening, which is vegetable shortening. And then mix at low speed for 2 minutes. So you need to scrape down the bowl and mix again for another 2 minutes. So please remember to scrape down the bowl so that the shortening won't stuck on your bowl surface. Then after that, add the remaining sieved ingredient and add part of the water or milk. So after you mix all the ingredients, you can add in water or milk. Mix at low speed for another 2 to 5 minutes. And then combine the remaining liquids and lightly beaten eggs. So lastly, you need to add in eggs. So with the mixer running, add the mixture to the batter in 3 parts. Okay, so first you need to add in your flour to the fat and then mix together. When it become well incorporated, put aside. And then second part, you combine all those liquid and eggs in another bowl, put aside. And then lastly, then you mix those ingredients together. Continue mixing for another 5 minutes. So now we're using the 1-stage method. Just now we're talking about the 2-stage method. 2-stage method is more complicated way, but this one is more simpler way. Okay, first we need to scale our ingredient accurately. That's what I said before. And then combine all the liquid ingredients first, including high ratio liquid shortening. So when you want to choose to use a 1-stage method is when the recipe needed you to use liquid fat. Liquid fat, for example, cooking oil, silicone oil or melted butter or melted margarine. So you can use one stage method when the recipe calls for liquid fat. Okay, first combine all liquid ingredients and then sieve the dry ingredient together on top of the liquid. So we add in the dry ingredient, which is flour, on top of the liquid mix, and then mix together at low speed for 30 seconds, and then we move into the high speed for another 4 minutes. Don't forget to scrape down the bowl and the beater, and then mix at medium speed for another 3 minutes. So this is the way to use or to do your sponge method, your sponge cake usually. Okay, now we move on into the low fat or egg foam cake. Just now we're talking about the high fat cake. Now we move on into the low fat cake. What is low fat cake? Low fat cake or egg foam cakes contain little or no shortening and depends on the air trap in the beaten eggs for the leavening agent. So means that this kind of cake have little composition of fat. So plain sponge or Genoa method we can consider as low fat cake because they just use parts of liquid fat in their recipe. So first step, we need to scale your ingredient accurately again, and then combine egg, sugar, salt in stainless steel bowl. So then you need to set up a hot water bath or double boiler, and then you add in the bowl on top of your water bath, and then continue beat the eggs at high speed until they are very light and thick. So mean that we need to heat up our eggs or our liquid first and then add in into the mixer, then you beat. So this will help to make the egg form quickly or rise up quickly. And then after you finish beat your eggs, and then you add in your dry ingredient, which is flour, and then immediately put in the pan and bake in the oven. Okay, these are example of low fat cake, angel food cake and chiffon cake. I'm sure that you're very familiar with chiffon cake, but angel food cake rarely we produce or we do it at home or in shop. So now we go one by one. What is the differentiate between angel food cake and chiffon food cake? Angel food cake usually they are in white in color, and then chiffon food cake they can be any flavor. You want it to be pandan chiffon, chocolate chiffon, or plain vanilla chiffon cake. But angel food cake will always be white in color with no added flavoring. So why we call angel food cake? Because it's contain no fat, but chiffon cake is contain fat. Angel food cake, a dry flour sugar mixture is poured into the egg white only. So the angel food cake using egg white, but then the chiffon food cake they're using the egg yolk. And they add in vegetable oil, water, and sugar. Angel food cake is leavened by egg white formed entirely. So angel food cake is what we can say they're using the meringue mixture. But then the chiffon food cake, there's no meringue mixture in it. So angel food cake contain no egg yolk. So this is suitable for those who are really care about their health or their diet. So if they go for diet with no egg yolk, they can eat angel food cake. But chiffon cake contain baking powder as well as egg foam for leavening. So because chiffon cake doesn't have meringue mixture, so they need to have another leavening agent, for example baking powder, to add it into the mixture to make the cake rise up nicely. So besides the angel food cake and chiffon food cake or low fat cake, there are also combination creaming and sponge method that you can choose. For example, if you want to prepare a cake or you just imagine you want to prepare a butter cake, but then you do halfway of your creaming method and halfway of your sponge method. For example, first you beat your butter with sugar until it becomes creamy, and then put aside. You just add in egg yolk and put aside, and then the egg white, you beat the egg white until it becomes a meringue mixture. Fold into the creaming method mixture just now. So with the help of the meringue, it will rise up the mixture nicely, so the cake will become creamy, but then it's also spongy in texture. Now we move on into ingredient and function in cake's formula. So flour and eggs provide structure to your cake. If the cake doesn't have flour, so the cake won't rise up or won't hold the texture, so the size of the cake. So when you bake a cake without flour or without egg, at first the cake will rise up and then it will destroy or demolish because there's no item that can structure or hold the shape of the cake. Sugar, fat, and chemical leavener act as a softener or shortening to your product. So when we add in fat, when we add in sugar or chemical leavener, your cake will become more soft and more tender. And water, liquid milk, syrup or liquid sugar and eggs will add in moisture to your cake. So if you do not have enough liquid into your cake mixture, the cake will become dry. And flour and starches also become a dryer to absorb moisture in your cake. So the cake won't become runny or wet when we bake or we make the cake. Now we move on into scaling, panning and baking process. So baking, please preheat your oven. So if you're reading the recipe and the recipe said, please reheat your oven into 180 degrees Celsius. Please do that before you scale any of your ingredients. First and foremost, please preheat your oven first before you scale your ingredient. And then make sure your oven and shelf are level. So if your shelf is not level, your cake will become half part of it. Make sure that oven and shelf are level so that your cake are baked. When the bake, it become level on the surface. And then do not let pans touch each other. So if you want to bake your cake more than 2 or 3 pans, please bake at correct temperature. If the recipe call for 180, please set your oven into the 180. Too hot oven cause a harm center and dark crust. So if you bake your cake in the too hot oven or high temperature oven, your cake will rise up in the middle only, become a mountain, just like a mini mountain, and then it also dark the crust on the surface, so the cake will become black in color. And then if you bake your cake in the lower temperature, the cake won't rise up, and then it will become the full volume and texture. So the texture won't become nice and the cake won't rise up. It just become a short cake. And if steam is available in the oven, use it for cream and two-stage method. So steam also help to rise up your cake. And then please do not open the oven until they have finished rising and are partially brown. So please don't keep open your oven door just to look up of your cake. Please don't do that. It will ruin your cake, okay? So how to test the doneness of the cake? So shortened cakes shrink away slightly from the sides of the pan. You can see when your cake is done when the cake is shrink a little bit from the pan. The center of the top of the cake spring back when we press slightly. So when we press the cake and then the cake bounce back and then cake cook. And then another way is you can use the cake tester or wooden pick. You just insert in the center of the cake when we pull out the cake tester and it come out clean, so that is show that the cake are cooked. So after that we need to do a cooling process. We need to cool down the cake a little bit before we take out from the pan. Please cool layer and sheet cakes 15 minutes in the pan and then turn out while slightly warm. Turn out layer cakes into rack to finish cooling. Cool angel food cake and chiffon cakes upside down in the pan so that they do not fall down into the pan and lose volume. So for angel food cake and chiffon cake, we need to turn the pan upside down and make them cool on the rack upside down so that the cake won't fall down after you take out from the oven. So this is what you can read when you bake the cake at the higher altitude or atmosphere. So they need to adjust some things, some proportion so that your cake will bake easily and nicely. You can read it by yourself. I think that's all for today. Thank you.